Yo, 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 what's up, my honky brothers and sisters out there? Alright, I'm joking. I'm not going to do that. But you know what's worse than a black, racist, Marxist college professor who got an affirmative action degree in the humanities pushing racist, anti-white propaganda? You guessed it, an effing white male college professor who has a humanities degree and pushes anti-white propaganda. I'm talking about college professors like University of Madison Wisconsin's own Damon Sajaini. Sajaini, despite his name sounding like he just got off the boat from Africa, is actually a professor there in African American studies. And he's an effing white male. And we're going to talk about his new course, which is called Yo Stinkin' White Cracker Ass is a Piece of Garbage. No, I'm joking. But the course is really called The Problem with Your Whiteness. And we've seen these college professors and we've seen this propaganda on the colleges over the past 20 years. But really, it's gotten so bad over the past couple of years, really towards the latter term of Obama. And we've seen how bad it is with stories coming out of campuses about segregating white students from black students, about how professors are grading white students differently. And I saw that personally myself last time I was in university. We've seen the college professors and the college newspapers like that in the University of Texas San Marcos, where they put out an article called Your White DNA is Abomination. So today I want to talk about this newest attack on whites in the university setting. And this takes place, like I said, at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. And there's a whole write-up about this class, and I think you're going to be interested in what this guy's attempting there. This is from College Fix. So, this spring, a controversial course titled The Problem of Whiteness will once again be offered at UMAD. The African Cultural Studies course seeks to teach students to understand how whiteness is socially constructed and experienced in order to help dismantle white supremacy. Well, guys, here's the thing. If whiteness and race is a social construct, why does the left spend so much time talking about it? Why do they always try to divide people based on race and sex and gender? You know, if it is a social construct, it was constructed by leftist racists in order to divide people. That's what they do. When the course debuted during the spring 2017 semester, it prompted national headlines and much controversy, with some Republican lawmakers calling for the course to be canceled. As they should, guys. This is nothing less than state-sponsored racism being pushed at the college level at a state-sponsored school paid for by taxpayers. Why is it only Republicans calling for this? Are there no white Democrat lawmakers who take offense to this anti-white racism that we're seeing all over college campuses? Or is it just that there's no non-communist Democrat lawmakers? Because we know that these communist subversives will use the excuse of fighting white supremacy to justify any kind of censorship and push their totalitarian agenda. It's just what they do. A University of Wisconsin spokesperson said the upcoming Problem with Whiteness course is very similar to last spring's class, and that first iteration was a total success. I bet it was. Student feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Students said they found it valuable to examine majority cultures and how power imbalances are created, sustained, and challenged in societies around the world, the spokesperson said. Well, I'm sure it is, huh? I know they're probably teaching these students all about places like the Dominican Republic, who don't want Haitians to enter their country because the pigment of their skin is just a shade darker. I'm sure they're teaching them about the great country of Japan, where minority populations are treated like second-class citizens. I'm sure they're teaching them about Brazil, where blacks are subjugated and ostracized, sent to live in ghettos and favelas. You know, I'm telling you guys, I've lived all over the world. I guarantee you they don't talk about Middle Eastern countries where non-Muslims live in fear and have to pay taxes or risk being killed, where women are beaten for driving and killed, stoned to death by hundreds of men regularly. In villages all across the Middle East, women are gathered up and stoned to death for even being suspected of adultery. But I guarantee you they're not teaching them that. They're definitely not teaching them that white Western cultures are the most welcoming. Capitalist countries are the only countries in the world where minority populations can walk the corridors of power. I guarantee you they're not teaching them that. And it's such a shame, because those are facts. Those are the truth. And those ideas will challenge the minds of these people who are so locked in this anti-white racism, who who are so propagandized by the left with their BS propaganda that they push so readily on these young, naive kids. It's such a disgrace. Dr. Sajaini debuted the class that drew the ire of 2 Wisconsin state lawmakers who denounced the new class and said it would affect future funding for the flagship university. As it should, guys, and it definitely will. We've seen what happens when companies and universities push this cultural Marxism. Remember what happened to Mizzou? We've all seen what happened to the National Football League, Starbucks, and recently Walmart when they tried to push this ANTIFA gear on their website. It hurts these companies, but they're willing to do it because we no longer live in a capitalist society. We have a society now where people are more worried about pushing this PC narrative and this cultural Marxist propaganda to push a globalist agenda, because all our leaders, the very people the left claim to hate, the corrupt politicians and the big corporations, they all want Marxism. Because it's a way to enslave the masses. It's a way to control all aspects of human life. And when you couple that with the environmental agenda, it fits right into their plans for their, to use an Alex Jones phrase here, New World Order. Which that's what it is. Henry Kissinger wrote all about it in a book called The New World Order, where he said that he wanted communist-style dictatorship with a ruling elite technocracy, just like he saw in China back in the 1970s. That is their ideal state, is basically a Chinese-style corporocracy with a communist base level for the proletariat. And that's what they want. That's why they're pushing all this garbage, to undermine America, to undermine its working class, to undermine its majority population, who they feel like are the people most likely to push back against their agenda. State Representative David Murray also raised concerns about several tweets from Professor Sajaini's Twitter account that the legislator said showed the professor condones violence against law enforcement and compares whites to KKK. Of course, because this brainwashed lunatic thinks that all whites are Republican Trump supporters. And of course he hates law enforcement. He's one of these Sean King types that thinks he's black. A guy who's been so brainwashed with cultural Marxist propaganda and lives in such a bubble. He's got to get into a virtue signaling Olympics with his friends and try to pretend that he's some sort of oppressed class. Or at least an ally. If this guy was worthy of the title professor, he would go out there and do some research, look into the facts about police shootings, and see that despite blacks being overrepresented in all crimes, especially violent crimes, they are less likely to be shot by police. And that police aren't out there just gunning down minorities because they're racist. If that was true, then Asians, Hispanics, Native Americans, they'd all be getting gunned down at a much higher rate than white people. And that's just absolutely not true. Absolutely not. Whites are still most likely to be gunned down by cops. And the fact is, that's about spot on with the crime statistics and the population. But despite that fact, police admit they're less likely to shoot black people than white people because they're afraid that jerks like this guy will try them in the court of public opinion before they have a fair shake at a trial. In one of the tweets highlighted by Murphy, Sajaini included a photo of news coverage from the 2016 fatal police shooting in Dallas and wrote, "Is this the uprising finally starting? Is this the style of protest gonna go viral?" I guess by style of protest, he means gunning down innocent police. What a jerk. Despite the backlash on the course went on as planned. And Governor Scott Walker, a Republican, called the course goofy, but said the university's funding should be based on the broader issue of accountability and performance. Because of course he did, because Scott Walker is a neocon piece of crap. And we need to get rid of him and these left-wing idiots if we're ever going to make America truly great again. The online description for next semester's course states that class will break away from the standard U.S.-centric frame and look at the concept of whiteness through a global lens. Well, I sure hope they do. Maybe then they'll realize that white countries are pretty great. In fact, they should go look at other countries and cultures through a global lens and see how much they like, let's say Central African countries or Middle Eastern countries. The fact is that if they really looked at whiteness through a global lens, they would see that white countries are the best standard of living. They have the best upward mobility. They have the best outlook for their minority populations. we will come together with our socially ascribed identities of black, white, mixed, and other, and with the problem properly in its place, we will ask ourselves and our allies, what are we going to do with it? The description states. Well, I have an idea of what they can do with it. They can take their perceived problem and shove it up there. In a phone interview with the College Fix last year, Sajaini says course explores how white privilege and white power are connected and how it looks at how students can join together to work for social justice. So when they talk about social justice, they mean undermine America, create a cultural Marxist-Marxist-Leninist revolution and destroy everything about America that made America great in the first place. The problem of racism is the problem of whites being racist towards blacks, the professor had said at the time. Well, that's typical. We always see that leftists project. It's my, catchphrase, leftists project. Whenever we see a leftist calling other people racist, it's because they are. Whenever we see a celebrity in Hollywood who's a leftist saying that, men are rapists, it's because they live in a rape culture. They've created a rape culture. It's all that continual projection and accusing your opponent of the things you're guilty of that the left have become famous for. Fact is, guys, is that, America's great. And our population here of white Americans, they are hardworking. They do great things. There are bad people in that population. There are racists in that population. But to judge a whole population based off of a few bad apples, that is racism. It's just unreal. The hypocrisy.